Brian and Kenzie in the morning. And Chicago's alternative all day.
Q101.
Kenzie's Krimes.
Milwaukee police found body parts in a North Side apartment.
Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me.
Believe me, if I started murdering people, there'd be none of you left.
This is evil, what those people have done to me.
City says Heaven's Gate away team.
I'm not guilty.
Q101.
Brian and Kenzie on Q101 with another edition of Kenzie's Krimes, a deep dive into a local murder mystery drama. And myself and Case are like you, the listener, waiting for the story. We have no idea what Kenzie's going to talk about, so let's get right into it, Kenzie.
Karyn Slover was a 23-year-old. She had actually already been divorced at this point, and she had a 3-year-old son named Colton, who is absolutely adorable, just the sweetest little boy. Karyn lived in Decatur, Illinois, and she had huge dreams of moving and becoming a model, okay? She was a beautiful woman. That was not a far-fetched dream. So on the morning of Friday, September 27th, 1996, Karyn finally got the email of her dreams. A modeling agency in Georgia was ready to sign her, ready to give her a big break. She was losing her mind. So that same day at 5 p.m., Karyn left her job at the local newspaper. That's where she worked in Decatur. And she was incredibly excited about the opportunities in front of her. She told coworkers that she was headed to her ex-husband's parents' house to pick up her son, Colton. So that would be his grandparents, her ex-in-laws. They owned a junk lot on the other side of town from her work. However, 5 hours after she left work, a sheriff found Karyn's car completely abandoned. The driver's side door was open. The car itself was running. Her purse was still in the car, as well as other belongings that were thrown around in disarray. As police searched the car, they realized it actually belonged to Karyn's boyfriend, David Swan. So the car was not near her work or the pickup location for her son. It went in the total opposite direction. Police immediately started to search for Karyn. The search took place over 3 different counties. After 24 hours of searching, they officially declared Karyn Slover missing. Because it was like, okay, because something weird could happen, right? But this is a missing persons case now. Friends and family hung up posters. The newspaper she worked for put up a $10,000 reward. And 2 days after Karyn disappeared, a garbage bag washes up on the side of Lake Shelbyville. The trash bag contained the dismembered remains of Karyn.
Oh my God.
2 days later, so police started searching the lake for more remains because not all of them were in that singular garbage bag. More bags were found, all containing parts of Karyn. While searching the area, officers decided to check the bridge going over the lake. And it wasn't like an old wooden bridge. It was like an actual road. They were wondering if that's where the bodies were dumped from. They were right. They found a blood smear on the guardrail. The DNA of the blood was a match to Karyn's. So an autopsy was done on Karyn's remains, and they were able to determine she was shot. It was 7 times in the head, 1 in her back, and 6 times in her front. She was not assaulted or robbed. So someone really wanted Karyn dead, and they believe that Karyn knew her killer. They gave a polygraph test to her ex-boyfriend. He passed and seemed to have no connection to his death. They also polygraph tested her ex-husband and father of her son, Colton. He had a solid alibi. He was actually on his way to work, stopped to look at a car accident, and ended up hitting on the female police officer from the scene. She seemed to explicitly remember him and not in a flattering way. He then worked his night job at the local bar, and so a lot of people saw him.
I wonder what lines he was using if he was that memorable.
He didn't seem super squeaky clean and great, if I could just give off a little seedy, so...
I think it was like, do you ever use those handcuffs personally?
Yeah, you want to handcuff me later? I think it gave off that energy big time. The final suspect was David Swan, Karyn's boyfriend. He had been very active in the investigation and on TV asking for help, and we know that sometimes that's a sign. Some people like to be overly involved to seem like they come across really innocent. He talked about their beautiful relationship. However, officers had heard the relationship described differently from coworkers of Karyn's. He passed the polygraph, but his alibi was not airtight. He had a rehearsal dinner to go to that evening, but it would have allowed him time for the crime. The bags Karyn was in contained chunks of concrete in order to help sink her body. There was also blonde hair and pieces of grass attached to those chunks of concrete. The hairs were canine, not human. So like, okay, maybe the murderer owned a dog. At least we're getting some type of DNA, right? On the day of Karyn's murder, she was supposed to pick up her son from his grandparents, which were, again, her ex-husband's parents. They owned a junk lot filled with rusting cars that the neighbors couldn't stand. Neighbors also reported after the murder, they saw Michael Jr. and Sr., so that's her ex-husband and his father, outside cleaning up using weed eaters and burning debris in a burn pile, which was apparently very unusual. They left everything to be true, like very much a junkyard usually, and police got a search warrant for the property because of this. David Swan, her boyfriend, was finally ruled out because he visited an ATM during the time of the crime. And ironically, he was wearing like a Hawaiian shirt. He's like, you're going to be able to find me in this footage. I'm in a very loud shirt. Officers pulled up the footage and realized it would have been impossible for him to have done this. He was literally at the time of the crime at the ATM. So they decided to take a deeper dive into the relationship with the ex-husband's parents. It turns out, as much as they love their grandson, boy, did they hate Karyn. And they were deeply upset by the idea of her moving away with him for her modeling career dreams. The mother, Jeanette Slover, had a long, aggressive arguments with Karyn and was incredibly possessive over Colton. I'm going to stop right here because the way they end up finding out who did this is like forensics has come so far. I can't believe they were able to even do this in 1996.
Wow. So we come back here in 3 minutes. We'll learn about that stuff and the conclusion of Kenzie's Crimes with Brian and Kenzie on Q101.
Brian and Kenzie in the morning. And Chicago's alternative all day.
Q101.
Brian and Kenzie on Q101 with the conclusion of Kenzie's Crimes. And if you want to catch us up quickly, Kenzie, go for it.
Yep, if you're just joining us, don't worry. You are going to understand the story. I'm going to catch you up. So Karyn Slover lived in Decatur, Illinois. She had a 3-year-old son, Colton, who she shared with her ex-husband. On the day that she went missing, she received an email from a modeling company, which is her absolute dream in Georgia. It was her goal to get out of Decatur and start modeling. She received an email that she was so excited about, and she was on her way to pick up her son, Colton, from his grandparents' house, which were her ex-in-laws, so not her parents. She was on her way to go get him. 5 hours later, her car was found abandoned. 2 days after that, her body was found dismembered in garbage bags in a nearby lake. So they did a deep dive into her relationship with her ex-in-laws, and it was not a positive one. Unfortunately, the case went cold after 8 months, and a new agent is added to the case and gets permission to exhume her body. They were able to determine a chainsaw had been used to dismember her, and it had been done so with her clothing on. So they could now look into pieces of clothing or buttons, things of that nature. It was suspicious how many phone calls went back and forth between her ex-husband, Michael Jr., and his parents when Karyn went missing. 18 phone calls in a few-hour period. The same time Karyn went missing, they searched the junk lot property. Again, they did this once and they had no luck, but this is a lot of ground to cover. It's a huge junk lot, right? They decided to focus on the burn pile that happened shortly after Karyn's disappearance, as well as taking the dog hair samples off the dogs that lived on the property to see if they matched the one found with the remains. So within those concrete blocks that were found in the garbage bags were chunks of grass, which does seem a little junkyardy, right? That's where they're pulling cement from, as well as blonde hairs, which they found out were canine. They finally found some evidence. The buttons and a piece of jean match what Karyn was wearing when she was murdered.
Whoa.
They found her clothing in the burn pile on her ex-in-law's property.
How?
So what they did, which is actually crazy, is they took ashes and had to separate them all into these buckets and run forensic on the ashes themselves to uncover what was actually made of, like denim and jean. Like, this is crazy that the girl interviewed who did the forensic on it was, you can burn stuff, you can cut it up, you can put it in a wood chipper, and it makes our job excruciatingly more difficult. But there's always something left behind when you do that. So the dog DNA was also a match to the dog that they had on the property.
Oh my God.
So now parts of her clothing, burned were found on the property. They have the dog hair from the property that was found inside the garbage bags with Karyn's remains. Police believed all 3 of them were involved. someone shot Karyn, which they believed to be Jeanette, because she was there for pickup. So Karyn showed up to the property to pick her son up, and the officers believe Jeanette then shot her, okay? And think about that. Poor Colton is there, her son, okay? Ugh. That happens. They think someone else drove the car to be abandoned, kind of a carpool situation. So the father, her ex-in-law, drove the car to be dropped off in the middle of nowhere, left it running, and someone else picked him up, okay? Then their son, who they wanted to have this airtight alibi, totally purposely hit on a cop, stopped at an accident, and was at work all night. He picked up Karyn's body, dismembered it, and threw it into the lake later. So it was a 3-person job, and everybody had an active effort. All 3 Slovers were convicted of murder. They all 3 received life in prison. My heart goes out to the sweet, innocent boy who basically lost everyone in his life that he loves. Karyn's parents were granted custody of Colton.
Kenzie's Krimes.
Milwaukee police found body parts in a north side apartment.
Not because I was angry with them, not because I hated them, but because I wanted to keep them with me.
Believe me, if I started murdering people, there'd be none of you left.
This is evil, what those people have done to me.
C says Heaven's Gate away team.
I'm not guilty.
Q101.